got signal and we're live. Come on, come on. Nothing but love, nothing but respect. You know what we do, what we don't, what we is, what we isn't, and what we is here today. Talking One Piece, chapter 1092. Tyrant Kuma's rampage through the Holy Land. I got with me at the moment, Kuma the Strawman, aka Kuma. Say hello, my guy.
Everybody.
Wonderful.
This is gonna be a tough chapter.
I was heartbroken in this chapter, I'm not gonna lie. But it is what it is. Oh, how have I gone through all of that and then forgot to add the backdrop? I don't know why I keep doing this mistake. Hang on. Where is it? Wait, has it changed? Hang on. This is now going to annoy me. Sorry, just before going live, I put up a new thing so that Kuma could be seen on the stream, partially at least. And then all of a sudden, it just decides to go, yeah, this doesn't exist anymore. We'll just, you know, too bad. Hang on. There we go. So I've got to have the window up. Okay, apparently that's what's playing with it. Either way, it's working now. I got behind me Kuma so you can see when he's talking and stuff like that. Yeah, this chapter was amazing, but also terrible all at once. There is way too much, but also nothing happening at all. Right? Like, for all intents and purposes, we only got 2 scenes in the entire chapter. But those 2 scenes were phenomenal, to say the least, weren't they?
Personally, I feel like if each of these scenes got their own chapter, I think that would have been better.
You think?
I think so. Just because, like, we've been jumping between the Mary Joie and the Vegapunk saga for a little while now. So I think it would have been better to conclude one after the other instead of separating them up like this. But again, maybe Oda just didn't have enough to write per each section.
I disagree with it because I think the Marie Joie stuff is a bit of a red herring.
Okay.
I don't think so. Despite the chapter being called Tyrant Kuma's rampage through the Holy Land, I don't think this was a rampage at all. I think this was just a means to an end and self-preservation.
Yeah, that just sounds like a good old Morgan's title for that matter.
Yeah, because if you look at the timeline of events here, Kuma's in Marie Joie, not doing anything problematic. He gets kidnapped by the revolutionaries from there and returned to Kamabaka Queendom, where he doesn't cause any damage. Dragon then asks him for a battle report, which also coincides with Bonnie activating his memories, and then he starts running. So I struggle with this because I see it like, you know, something had to change. It was either Bonnie with the memories or Dragon asking for the battle report, which caused him to have a change of state, right? That was the catalyst for him. Then, going from that, he immediately blips himself away from Nubaka Queen, like the new Kamas, right? The Kamabaka Queendom.
Yep.
I'm assuming he's heading for Egghead. He can't make it to Egghead because of the red line in the way. So he blips all the way to the red line, then has to climb over it, and then he blips away from the red line. The only reason they attack him is because they see Kuma's been kidnapped, and then all of a sudden he starts climbing the red line, and it's like, oh, okay, we better defend ourselves. This is weird, right? Then in this chapter, it opens up with he's just gotten to the top, and they're starting to chain and attack him. He doesn't really attack them, but he uses an Ursa's shock to get them away from him. And if it wasn't for Akainu standing there, it's assumed he would have ran away in that moment. But then Akainu attacks him, and as soon as he gets away from Akainu, he runs away.
Yeah, it's very even Kuma by nature, I know they give him the title of Time and everything like that, but almost every time that we've seen Kuma, even from when he was first like officially introduced in Thriller Bark, Kuma's never been one to really take the initiative. So to see him, so to see a situation right now where he's literally just trying to get past, it's really making me think like what's driving him this time. Because again, as you said, Boney with the memories or Dragon's battle report, like
So
I, if Kuma is going to Egghead, I want to think that maybe it might be a mix of the two. He might be going to save Boney because he wants to avoid an incoming battle. But again, that's just a random theory.
I have gone a bit too far down the rabbit hole on this because I think there's two huge plot lines that are mirroring too closely that I think tie in with Kuma in this situation, right?
Mhm.
Or three plot lines, I should say. So, first things first, Akainu, after he gets away here, Akainu says, right, you've lost your will, your mind, everything. You're just a damn puppet now. Where are you going? Right?
Mhm.
Kuma's introduced. What's his biggest catchphrase when he was introduced? If you were to go on vacation, where would you like to go?
Oh.
But now, thematically, that's been flipped on him. People are questioning him. Where are you going? Where would you like to go? Right?
Yeah, and he doesn't answer.
So, I don't have an answer for that. What I do have is I understand that there's been a reversal of his character, though. In a thematic sense, right? So then I'm looking at that and I'm trying to wonder now, what is Kuma? What is Kuma's plot in the story? What are Kuma's connections? How do they relate to the current Egghead? And more importantly, how can they change? Right? So I'm now stuck with the thing. My favorite arc in the entire story is Sabity.
Yeah.
Sabity is really important because Sabity is a pre-time skip rhyme to Egghead. Right? I'm now looking at it and I'm thinking to myself, in Sabity, we were introduced to Vegapunk's bodyguard, so we were bringing up Vegapunk and all of his inventions, right? We were introduced to Sentomaru, we were introduced to Kizaru, we were introduced to Bonnie, and we were reintroduced to Kuma. Right? All at Sabity. On top of that, you were introduced to the concept of cloning and cybernetics with the pacifistas. Right? They were taking Kuma and they were replicating him. But if we take that now and marry it up with Egghead, it went from Vegapunk is the smartest man in the world. He's been able to make clones and robots, and they're so high functioning and amazing, and they're powerful, and we're struggling with them, right? And we have that again with the Seraphim, but ignore the Seraphim. What we're actually introduced to is Vegapunk's inventions are cheap knockoffs of ancient kingdom technology.
Yep.
So, if pre-time skip, the greatest technology were these robots, these pacifistas, right? Post-time skip, in Egghead, we're introduced to the same thing again with the ancient robot that awakens at the end of the chapter. Right? So, it's realistically, despite the Seraphim existing, those original pacifista robots mirror the ancient giant robots to some extent. Right?
Okay.
The important thing I have to note is we open up Egghead and we're specifically told from introduction you cannot remove the will of creatures. Right? You've got the sea beasts, and Vegapunk does not have the capacity to remove their will.
Yep. Or their base instincts, because the shark mecha still tried to act as a predator despite Vegapunk trying to remove its instinctive
So how did he remove Kuma's will? Or did he not? Did Kuma remove it with his devil fruit?
That's true. That's true because when Kuma was like, I think it's Kuma's situation is different though, because in a sense where it's not so much trying to take out the personality, it's more so Kuma's memories have been taken away, right? And when, when you don't know who you are, of course you're considered as an empty template, but in reality, it's just that your emotions don't have any quote unquote like lessons or teachings or memories to attach your emotions to. So Kuma could actually be fully emotionally capable. He's just,
Removed
memory
it.
hollow.
He's removed it. Arguably, he's
Yeah.
removed that entire network from himself, which would be what Bonnie connected herself to, right? And so far, all I've gone over are facts. I haven't theorized yet, right? But all I've gone over are the facts. The other fact is that Bonnie engaged with his memories, which is seemingly all of his memories up until just after the Straw Hat separation on Saturday, right?
Hmm.
And she no longer has a grudge against Vegapunk. She cried of sadness, but she also cried of happiness, and she now believes everything's okay in that capacity. She's no longer hurt, right? So Kuma's plotline, or Kuma's plan, something in Kuma's memories, resolves Bonnie to not worry about it anymore, which is a fundamental switch of her character as well. Right? This is where I get into some theorizing. Right? If Kuma was the strongest bit of technology pre-time skip, there could be an argument to be made that post-time skip he could also become the strongest piece of technology in the world that we know of. Right?
Okay.
We know that the Straw Hats' plan to escape Egghead right now is specifically to have gotten the Vega Force 01 to pick up their ship and fly off the island. The Vega Force 01, though, has been destroyed this chapter, and we know that Vega Force 01 was Vegapunk's inferior replica of that ancient robot. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What if Kuma in Egghead mirrors Ivankov in Impel Down? Where
Ivankov did the blink, right, to escape the front gates?
Yes, but taking it a step further than just that, adding the thematic rhyme to it, you have a revolutionary top 3 commander who is given orders and has a set plan that they have ready to carry out, regardless of self-sacrifice, right? That their plan is interrupted by the Straw Hats, causing them to have to abandon their plan to help the Straw Hats. Right? You have Ivankov, who was not meant to leave Impel Down. He only left Impel Down because he thought Luffy was Dragon's son, and therefore Ace was Dragon's son, and that there was going to be repercussions. And he said, if I don't do this now, it'll be worse. Right? That was his plan. Something in Kuma's memories is Kuma's plan, which put Bonnie at ease. Right? What if Bonnie ended up finding out? Because we know that those memories were also up behind a locked door, weren't they?
Yeah.
So Vegapunk was guarding those memories and no one was allowed in there. Right? What if, once those memories were activated, Kuma wakes up? Part of Kuma wakes up, but he's got a time limit to get back to his memories. He just instinctively knows it. Right? But once he gets back to those memories, with the devil fruit powers that he has on hand, he has the abilities to either take them back into his body or implant them in another body. It's like Brook coming back from the dead, right? He needed to find his body to inhabit.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
And that robot waking up at the end of this chapter isn't waking up because Luffy's in Gear 5, because the robot didn't wake up when Luffy fought Rob Lucci. Right? Because I've seen a lot of people theorizing that that robot is, like, powered by Gear 5. If that was the case, wouldn't it have woken up when Gear 5 was present before now? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
So I think, because the event of this chapter opens up with this Kuma stuff, but this was also happening yesterday, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think overnight, Kuma has made it back to Egghead because he's also the only person like Kizaru that could make it through all the defenses without anyone noticing, right? And I think he has since implanted his memories in the robot at the end of the arc, and he will fulfill the same role that that robot was supposed to fulfill for the Straw Hats escaping, mirroring what Ivankov did for the Straw Hats in Impel Down.
That would be cool. That would be cool. And it would also be a really good parallel.
And it's one of those things as well, where I think what adds to it all a little bit more is the fact that the design of this robot is also based on a Viking. It's got a Viking-esque design, doesn't it?
Yep, the horns.
And the next arc we would go to would also
Elbaf.
happen to be Elbaf. And going back to the rhyme and the reason, Sabrity Archipelago ended with Kizaru attacking the Straw Hats, but being thwarted by Kuma sending them away to places that they needed to go.
Dang. So Kizaru's really gonna get teased like that.
I think what's going to happen is, with the way this chapter ends, Luffy's in Gear 5, Kizaru's going to start using Advanced Haki, Luffy's going to end up using Advanced Haki in Gear 5 and match Kizaru, then Kizaru's going to tease his awakening, and on the tease of the awakening, Kuma, now inhabiting that ancient robot, is going to blip the Straw Hats with Vegapunk away and crash land in Elbaf. Mirroring the same way that the Straw Hats landed around the world, but Luffy landed in Amazon Lily. Right?
So they're just gonna land on top of Dogi and Rogi.
I think they're just gonna land, including the Sunny, in the middle of the island somewhere. Right?
It'd be cool if we got transported right there and then we ended up seeing like Loki.
I mean,
just right in the middle of the palace.
What if we have like a us meeting Loki the same way Luffy met Boa?
Ooh.
Something similar to that.
Yeah, that'd be a cool way.
And what are the Kuja known as? The warrior country. Elbaf is the land of warriors. Right? So, to me, what's set up here is enough for there to be no resolution, really, but also it mirror perfectly what we saw pre-time skip. You know what I mean?
Basically the New World version.
Yeah. And I think what adds to all of that as well is the sense that the Egghead Island incident is going to be something that, turns the world upside down, right? The world's never going to believe it, right?
Yeah.
This is the largest fleet ever mobilized. It would, and this is assuming something doesn't happen that's ridiculous. Like, for example, right? Luffy's grabbing Kizaru here. Whether it's Kizaru or whether it's Saturn himself. What would happen almost if those events play out, but the Straw Hats accidentally have a hostage?
Well, they still have the Vegapunk, or no, did they leave the...
York?
Yeah, did they leave York behind, or did they bring her with them?
I don't care either way, but I'm thinking of it more of they bring an enemy with them. Not like York, I mean like someone that's competent, but also someone that's like, oh, I'm stuck in Elbaf. So they have to end up reporting back, and the way the world sees it is the Straw Hats escaped the biggest fleet ever amassed from a government island in the front, like facing off against an admiral and a Gorosei member, took a hostage, didn't take any injuries, and escaped. Because that essentially is, we beat the world government.
Yeah, and honestly, like that might even string up Akainu to finally take action, man. Because with Saturn there and Kizaru,
Yep.
having that kind of quote unquote humiliation and disgrace that you allowed them to escape despite having top tier enforcers there.
Yep.
And you know Akainu, he's fully like, he really cares about the front image of the Marines. Not only that, he's also got the situation where he's quote unquote getting berated by the world nobles because he allowed Kuma to escape.
I'm thinking right now, how long is Sabbaty? It's like 30 chapters?
Roughly, I thought it was like 30 or like 32 or something like that.
It is 23 chapters.
Oh dang, okay.
Right?
Yeah, just flip around 32 and I was right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, okay, I'll cop that. I'll cop that. I remember it went across 3 volumes, right? Because it was 50, 51, 52. Like the end of 50, 51, 52. Because you also had, I technically count like the Duval stuff as part of Sabbaty, right?
Yeah.
But looking at that, right? We're pretty close to the same amount of like we've gone a little bit over that. I think we're about 30 chapters for Egghead at the moment. But we've also been cutting away to a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So let's call it chapter. What chapter did the Straw Hats get separated in Amazon Lily?
I'm sorry, man. I have no idea.
What chapter does Kuma separate their Straw Hats? Because it'd be 520-ish? 513, right? Chapter 513.
Okay.
So, 1023. We're past chapter 1023, but, like, almost double the story later, we have the exact same thing happen. You know what I mean? And all of Egghead essentially takes place after chapter 1060. Right? So we've just hit 31 chapters in the arc at the minute. Right? I'm looking at this at the moment. I don't think we're having a long drawn out fight here, do you?
No, unfortunately not. I don't think we're going to get something on the same scale of Luffy versus Kaido.
So, I raise another question. Kuma's about 6 to 8 meters tall, right?
No, he's way taller than that. I thought it was like, he's only a little bit shorter than Gecko Moria, who's like 22 feet.
Which is like 6 to 8 meters tall, isn't it?
Oh wait, no, yeah, sorry. I'm thinking of feet, not meters.
Yeah.
Jeez, please don't.
How tall is Kuma?
Measuring systems.
How tall are you?
Surely it'll be taller than Darcy.
Here we go. I got it for you. Sorry, yeah, he's like 6.7 meters.
6.7 meters. Perfect. Because then I ask this question. We see an Ursa shock at the beginning of the chapter being pretty big, right?
Yep.
That's
warping the next door building too.
That's performed by a 6.7 meter person. What happens if a 60 meter tall giant robot does it? Amplify
Rest
that.
in peace, whoever is on there.
Amplify that by 10? Roughly? Like 10 times
Roughly.
bigger? Yeah?
Like, I mean, again, like, see, like, the shot of this Ursa's shock, right? It's even, like, it's warping even the
Castle.
main building and everything, right?
It's warping Pangea Castle and that on its way out, yeah.
Yeah. So, and Pangea Castles, it's pretty humongous.
Yeah.
Because like looking at the bottom there, just the tree itself is about, and I assume that these are fully grown trees. So using that and like taking one tree and just slowly stacking it on top, you've got about maybe like the Pangea Castle's like 20 trees high.
Yep. So times that by 10 for scope.
Yep.
That would be
20.
enough to displace the fleet chasing them enough to escape. Because they're on the
Maybe
water.
even obliterate Egghead.
They're on the water. So say it is like a mini version of what happened to the Lucia Kingdom, where they shoot out, like this big bubble. All the ships get pushed away from a big tsunami, right? Straw Hats escape. Sea starts to settle. They start to go, we're going to follow them. We're going to chase them. But then the tsunami created by destroying the Lucia Kingdom ends up encircling them anyway. Because we still know that that's on the way back.
That'd be a major L. Could you imagine if they accidentally transport themselves into the middle of the hole?
I mean, I'm just saying, right? We know that there's earthquakes slowly traveling around the world at the moment, creating tsunamis all around the world. But we haven't seen it reach the New World yet. So you've got the giant tsunamis that are potentially on their way, and you've got a character that can push these people into a giant tsunami on their way, potentially on the way, that if he doesn't come and become that robot, right? I generally question, what is his role? Where is he going? You know what I mean? Because the way this arc was set up, there were a bunch of... What was being set up have to be linked together in some capacity. The only thing that I don't think is being linked together with this at the moment, and it was just a general update, is specifically, and I mean specifically, the stuff relating with the Cross Guild. I feel like Cross Guild was just a normal setup for later down the line, right? But then we start setting up Kid going to Elbath. Kid goes to Elbath. We see that Shanks is there, but we see that Shanks is leaving and Kid's been destroyed there, right? So that is setting up the next arc. Then we cut over to Law vs. Blackbeard, right? And we get the Law vs. Blackbeard start. Like we got Blackbeard vs. Boa, Blackbeard vs. Law, Blackbeard, Pirates versus Garb and capturing Garb, right? So that's going to be the arc after Elbath in some capacity. Right? Which is fitting, because if you look at it like that, the Straw Hats went to Egghead, so they went from one side of the Grand Line straight across the other. They didn't progress down the Grand Line at all, did they?
No, honestly, in terms of progress, they really haven't advanced that much.
But then they're going to work their way back. They went straight across, and then the next island they're going to is just the middle path they could have taken in the first place, going to Elbath with Kid. And then after that, the next place that they could go would be wherever Blackbeard is. That would be the next path down that line. Right? And
So you think we're going to go from Elbath to Blackbeard?
I think we will.
Okay.
And that could be fitting in a sense where if they're competing with each other over fighting each other, but also trying to fight each other over the man marked by flames, I think that could be fitting.
Yeah, man marked by flames.
And the reason why that could actually be more fitting as well is because it's a little ironic in a sense. You got the man marked by flames being chased by the man marked by smoke.
Marked by smoke? Wait.
You got Blackbeard who bellows out smoke. He's charred with smoke.
Oh! And you know what would be really cool, actually, if it's a reference? Because Blackbeard's already fought a fire user in the Vision of Ace, where he literally swallowed all of his fire.
Yep.
That
So
would be a cool little tidbit.
there's a lot of little stuff like that, thematically, that set up this, but also from a geographical standpoint, right? It makes sense, but it could add to it because Luffy and Law are on good terms, but Law's crew just got annihilated, right? What happens if
Mm.
Luffy leaves Egghead, makes it to Elbaf, has an arc in Elbaf, but also Kid has an altercation and an interaction with Luffy, causing Kid to develop his character, but also Kid is now also aware of, like, it wasn't a one-off. This is how Luffy operates wherever he goes, right? And it's more flies with honey than you catch with vinegar. Then the Elbaf arc ends with Law and Beppo washing up on shore. Being able to communicate that they got wiped out by Blackbeard, and Blackbeard now has all the road poneglyphs that he had. Right?
Mm.
But then to double up on that, we also find out that he had captured Kobe and Garp. And considering Luffy already doesn't like him, and he's the next island away, that could make Luffy go, do you know what? I've been wanting to kick his ass anyway. Let's just go there now and I'll kick his ass. Right? But based on what information they learn in Elbaf, it could lead them to the man marked by flames. So Luffy has to choose between going for the man marked by flames or kicking Blackbeard's ass. Right? Meanwhile, Blackbeard may actually come across some information about the man marked by flames himself, now that he's got the likes of Pudding, 3 new poneglyphs, an admiral and a former vice admiral, and all this other stuff. You know what I mean? Which could lead into Blackbeard and Luffy directly competing each other over the last road poneglyph for One Piece. It's hard at the moment, right? Because it's like,
Sorry, yeah, my brain is. I'm just trying to
process all these moving parts. It's so hard, right? Because I'm looking at it from the sense that it's like, if we look at these based on again mirroring what was happening pre-time skip, but also having different meanings to them. You got Sabaody and Egghead, which means the next arc is Amazon Lily, which is again a short arc making allies, but also having a bunch of conflict in other world like implications, right? Which would be Elbaf. Then after that, you've got Impel Down, which is where Luffy met Blackbeard originally anyway. Right? And that's where they had their first altercation with each other in Impel Down, which would be in 2 arcs. The difference being, I could see it being a little bit more crazy. I don't know if it's going to be like an odd set piece, because you've got Impel Down, which was underwater. So maybe their altercation is more along the lines of like a Sky Island or something like that. An elevated plane.
Elevated plane.
You know what I mean?
Actually, I want to ask you, do you ever think that we'll be going back to the Sky Islands? Because we've been told that there are at least as many settlements in the island as there are down in the sea.
I think we're going.
That we're going to pass by there again?
I think we're going to a new Sky Island. I don't think we're going back to one of the previous ones that we've seen. I think we're going to the summit of High West.
Summit of High West.
Which is where in Sabaody, not Sabaody, in Skypiea, they specifically said, "Oh, did you guys travel from the summit of High West?" What? No, we came up the knock-up shrimp. What? That crazy death trap? So there's a safe way to reach the White Seas.
I'm just thinking too, like, you know, this whole man marked by flames business. Everybody's assuming, like, again, it has to be a scar or something like that. But what happens if it was also like an imprint? Because we have
tattoos, the fishmen.
Yeah, we have the fishmen who got quote unquote marked by burn scar, right?
Yeah.
And the interesting thing too is that in chapter 1056, when he is mentioned, like Robin Robin, I don't know. She has a question mark appear before in like that one short panel, right? But like Oda wouldn't have wasted his time to draw that if she didn't like quote unquote have a clue, because you know it's Robin, right? I hate to say it, but she's pretty much like the information plot filler.
Clover got shot, didn't he?
Hmm?
Professor Clover got shot, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Because
So this is what I mean. Like I'm thinking like maybe Robin might actually have an idea,
who it is?
but she's just holding back because it's not like the time and place for it.
Because I would argue then in that capacity, you could have. It could be a mad red herring. It could be someone. Like, we all are like, oh my god, Saul survived. So go back to O'Hara. What if someone else survived? What if Clover survived?
I know. Like, yeah, Saul's a big guy. He could have literally just taken a lot of the survivors and headed on out.
The true answer that no one else wants to hear or deal with is that the ship, with the full black ship, is actually the Oro Jackson after it's been burnt and charred, because it's made of atom wood. It'll burn, but it will never fully burn through, right? And the man marked by flames is like Odin, because he got boiled alive in oil. Could be crazy shit like that. Because, I mean, look, there's so many possibilities, and it's hard because there's so many red herrings. Like, remember the character that Crocus and Laboon are talking to in the cover story for the 500 Million Merry Man arc?
Yeah.
I now think that that's just Yorkie. Right? So, I can't look at that person and consider them potentially being like the man marked by flames or something like that. You know what I mean? Even though they're still like a red herring character. Because I think that's going to be like... I think that's meant to be Yorkie because... Brooke died 50 years ago. 52 years ago is when the Yorkie pirates got sick, right? So between 52 years ago and 50 years ago is when they would have either died or escaped. Crocus was like, oh my god, I got it on good authority that they made it out of the Grand Line, right? Do you know what else happened 50 years ago? Kozaburo and the Samurai of Wano left Wano and ended up making their way to the East Blue, which would be the same side of the ocean that Yorkie would have fled from. So, if anyone was going to help, like, free them from it, it'd be a bunch of badass samurai that can cut down Sea Kings. Otherwise, I don't see Yorkie surviving going through the Calm Belt. And the people from Wano also just so happen to be from the one country that also has Sea Stone, and we know Sea Stone makes you invisible to the Sea Kings, so you can go through the Calm Belt.
Yeah.
So it's like one of those things where it's like Brook and Zoro's flashback could be intertwined then, because for all we know, Yorkie could have been injured and sick and grown up in Shimotsuki Village.
Oh.
Right? So when Brook finally makes it back to Laboon and the Twin Capes and that, again, the Twin Capes, because there's two lighthouses on two peninsulas, right? You need two people to operate two lighthouses. Yorkie Crocus, permanent residence, right? Brook comes back, fully expecting to just see Laboon. He's like, oh my god, Laboon, I'm so happy you're here. Only for Yorkie to walk out. Happy ending.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hate that there's so many moving parts in One Piece, but it's also something that I love. Because it's like, you never predict everything, but at the moment, because we're getting close to the end, I'm looking at it more like it's Star Wars. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Stuff doesn't happen identically, but there's a rhyme. There's definitive, like, patterns of behavior. You know what I mean?
It's just... This is the thing with, like, overlaying plots and everything like that, right? Because it's the situation where you have so many POVs that are quote-unquote happening within the same time space that, again, like, Oda's handled it, I guess just in the format, to be honest, it's a lot easier with manga because you can actually show it, as in terms of when in comparison to a book, you kind of just have to randomly chop in the middle of a chapter or something like that in order to do, like, a different time reference. But again, yeah, with the medium of a manga or a comic book, it's just so much easier because we can literally see the changing and happenings. That's why like it just works out so well.
Yeah. So it's
But no, I am with you on board with that. It's a love-hate relationship with how this is playing out.
Like,
gosh, man.
I never like I always predict like 50% of it, and there's 50% of it that it's like there was never a chance to predict it. You know what I mean? Like, for example, at the moment, I don't know where the Buggy Pirates sit, like the Cross Guild sit, but I see the Cross Guild potentially being antagonists around the same time to the Straw Hats as maybe the Red Hair Pirates are. If that makes sense. Because Buggy and Shanks have some knowledge and understanding on One Piece. Blackbeard doesn't. So Shanks and Buggy have bigger dramatic irony knowing something than Blackbeard.
Yeah, that's honest to God, I'm surprised, genuinely surprised that Blackbeard hasn't gone after Buggy. In some senses, because again, like, you know how a lot of One Piece characters, they can feel a force of power or something from them? I'm
know
sorry to say
Blackbeard
that
can do it.
Buggy just doesn't emanate any of.
See,
Like, you literally have someone who's knowledgeable, who was with Goldie Roger, who visited the last island, but again, he never saw it. But still, Buggy would, like, be able to recount the path that he took there. So it's kind of mind-boggling to me how Blackbeard didn't go after Buggy before he got into, like, this whole Cross Guild and, like, proper Emperor status.
What's crazy as well at the moment is the Cross Guild is comprised of people that hate Blackbeard.
Yes, very much so.
Blackbeard's original plan was to kill Crocodile. And Crocodile knows this because Blackbeard shit-talked him in Marineford, in Impel Down.
Yep.
Right?
Because he was planning to take his spot as a warlord.
Exactly. Kid Buggy and Blackbeard do not get along. Right?
Yeah, and to be honest, Buggy also was one of the first people to ever call out Blackbeard being sus.
Yeah. He was the first person to be like, nah, that kid's wrong. Right? So you've got...
It's not just like a random inkling or suspicion. Like, yeah, when Buggy heard out that he doesn't sleep...
And...
like, even Shanks, as perceptive as he is, he didn't catch on it.
And another big question would be... Okay, how does Mihawk fit into it? Mihawk has two potential antitheses in the Blackbeard Pirates. Shiryu, because of the swordsman that's cowardly and invisible. You would think that directly goes against Mihawk's, belief of what a swordsman is. But there's also someone else that I think is very fitting to be an antithesis to Mihawk as well, and that's Van Augur. Augur fights with a rifle from a distance, which Mihawk may see as somewhat cowardly to an extent. But you've got that fate and crossroads symbology that happens there with Augur, where he's like, things are predetermined. Whereas Mihawk and his clairvoyancy are about seeing the path ahead. You know what I mean? So there's a symbolic antithesis of each other there from that regard. And I mean, you could even make the argument, the crossroads, Mihawk wears the cross. Right? So the last big crossroads that the Blackbeard Pirates would have to deal with would be claiming a former member of the Roger Pirates in Buggy for information. Which... it makes the conversation a lot harder, because we also know that Shanks is after Blackbeard, don't we? We also know that Shanks is currently in the hopes trying to find the One Piece. The last two big things we found from Shanks is he's trying to keep tabs on Blackbeard, and he was actually going to Wano to try and fight Blackbeard. When Blackbeard didn't show, Shanks was like, oh, that's weird. Anyway, we'll get more intel and we'll go after One Piece. Right? You could have a situation where Blackbeard attacks the Cross Guild, and in retaliation, Shanks tries to attack the Blackbeard pirates. All while Luffy deals with the Marines on Marineford and then has an altercation on Elbaf.
Yeah.
And the winner of those two big battles and altercations, probably being Blackbeard and probably being Luffy, will race for the final goal of One Piece. And it doesn't mean that there's a full eradication of those other two organizations and groups. But it could mean that the leaders themselves get defeated or severely injured for a time. Right? I think everyone expects at some point in time Shanks should fight Blackbeard. Because of the stereotypical trope of, you've scarred me, we're destined to fight. Right?
Yeah.
If that happens, it has to happen before Luffy fights Blackbeard. Otherwise, I don't see Blackbeard continuing around post-conflict with Luffy. Do you?
I mean, I just don't know how deep Blackbeard's roots is inside the main story, because past Blackbeard, like, we still, honest to God, right now, we still don't know why Blackbeard wants to become king of the pirates. Like, his true quote-unquote goal, you know? Like, we know that he wants to take the helm, but we don't know where he wants to steer it. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. And do you know what I say to that?
Yep.
That lines up even better with the plot going forward. Because you know what we've got right now? If we have Blackbeard going after Buggy, and then Shanks going after Blackbeard because he goes after Buggy, and Blackbeard comes out on top against both organizations, right?
Ooh. People are gonna be mad.
There is room there because Garp's involved too, right?
Yeah, Black Garp was captured.
There is room there for the Rocks Valley for the God Valley flashback, which raises another important emotional through line for the two of them. And do you know what that is? Shanks is a Figureland. Blackbeard is obviously idolizing Zebek or has a connection to Zebek.
Yes.
Figureland Garling became famous at God Valley dealing with Rox D. Zebek. It's like the kid of two rivals having their fated duel. And the only person that would be there that was present that's still alive, right, is Garp or Rayleigh. Rayleigh's not here. Garp's here. He could narrate that Garp doesn't like Shanks because not only did Shanks raise Luffy into becoming a pirate, but he's also a celestial dragon. And he knows that his family are the worst of the worst. But on the flip side, Blackbeard is a scummy, opportunist coward. And just like Zebek, he would be the worst kind of punishment for the world. So the symbology there is the better of two evils winning. Just in a really weird way. And although us as fans are like, oh, we would want Shanks to win. Like, I'm not saying Blackbeard has to kill Shanks, but he could give Shanks a bit of the treatment that Shanks has been giving people like Kid. Which it raises a lot of hard questions there. But it would also be a much needed Haki balloon for the Blackbeard pirates, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Because at the moment, they have all the devil fruits, but they don't have the Haki feats to back up the fruits, right? Because of that, a lot of people, I don't think, take the Blackbeard pirates as too threatening at the minute. If they fight in an extreme diff fight and end up beating the Red Hair pirates, the one crew we know is carried by the fact that they're all Haki users, that could lead them into being an upgraded form of an issue. You know what I mean? And the aftermath of that could even be something more wild, where maybe we actually get an alliance between the remnants of the Red Hair Pirates and Cross Guild. With Shanks and Buggy finally being dual captains together. There is just way too many possibilities at the minute. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, this is great. No, I love this, man. This is how One Piece stays fresh, despite no matter what happens.
Dude, we haven't even gotten into power scaling in this chapter yet, right? And we've been going for an hour just talking about thematical connections based on this chapter. Like, that's why One Piece is what it is, right? Because even though you get power scaling and you can comment on it, the most enjoyment you get from it is going, what's going to happen next in the story? It's like when Gear 5 came out. Instead, for the first 2 weeks, people weren't going, oh my god, Gear 5 is so powerful. People were going, oh my god, Gear 5 was foreshadowed. You know what I mean? It's like, it's what it means to the story and the world before, like, how cool the fight were. If that makes sense. But, yeah, I don't know. Because at the moment, there are... Like, I think we are going to rhyme and reason with Egghead Sabbaty, Elbaf Amazon Lily, Impel Down, Blackbeard Arc, Final War. But that Final War itself may even be a rapid fire of even more smaller arcs. Right? Like... You know how all of East Blue took like 100 chapters? And we just jumped from island to island to island to island to island. Right? The Final War could be something in that regard where it's not all taking place in one spot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I could see it again where we get a rhyme of 3. You've got... a rhyme of 4, sorry. You've got East Blue Saga, which is like your first verse. You've got the Grand Line, which is your second verse. You've got the New World, which is your third verse. And then the Final War itself is like a microcosm of all the same story beats going again in a rapid fire. Because we've still got the likes of VV to be present soon. Don't we? And Morgans and VV and Wapple are apparently flying close to where the Straw Hats are at the moment. Do you know what could even happen? If Kuma isn't that robot and he blips them away? Could you imagine the Straw Hats stuck in a bubble go flying past Morgans and the World Economic Journal? And
sick.
And you get like one of the like... You get like VV and Morgans with their eyes doing like the Gear 5 like... Huh? As they just blip past them, just like, was that Luffy? You know what I mean?
Oh man.
Because
this would actually no. This would actually be a really good or no, who is it? Caribou, is he still on the pirate ship?
Good question. I forgot Caribou was here. Caribou's on the island somewhere.
Could you imagine if they fly past Morgan's, Caribou in his barrel gets dropped off into Morgan's?
That would be funny as well. Especially if the person that Caribou was wanting to talk to with all the information about the ancient weapons was Morgan's.
Yeah.
Because we've always thought of it being someone nefarious like Blackbeard or Crocodile or someone like that. If it was literally he just wanted to spill the word to the news and get fucking paid a bank, that would be funny as well. Wouldn't it?
Oh, dude. Yeah, that'd be perfect, honestly. It'd be a really nice tie-in.
And it would also start partially the Great Final War because all of a sudden Morgan's reports that there's an ancient weapon in Wano, there's an ancient weapon in Fishman Island, and all these places all of a sudden just start getting hammered with pirates. It could definitely raise the tension and the conflicts. And then you'd have the world government who doesn't know which target to aim for first, right? But in that same case, you'd have, like, by then, Yamato and Momo having to defend Wano from an invasion like they said they would need to be able to develop into.
Yeah, because Wano is still, like, again, like, just one admiral was already, like, able to cause insane upheaval, right? And he pretty much left with, Ryu Kyugi pretty much left with, like, no injuries whatsoever.
I see. So you know how I said there's potential that they take a hostage with them to Elbaf?
Yes.
Depending on who that hostage is, if it's someone like Saturn, they wouldn't hurt him. And Saturn may or may not try to hurt them in the situation. Like, that might sound weird. I think Saturn's capable of hurting them. But, like, if they kidnap Saturn, I just see him sort of, like, just standing around, just, like, watching them. You know what I mean? Just silently observing them and what's going on. Imagine if Green Bull gets sent with them, like, sent to go recover them because Kizaru's stuck with the remnants of the fleet, right? So you got Green Bull pulling up to Elbaf, because what would make that even better is Green Bull could potentially become the World Tree. Being part of the Forest Man. He could become like the Atom Wood itself.
Yeah, again, like there's so many nuances with Green Bull's fruit, because I want to like genuinely ask, like, because I've always thought of it as a reference to like him needing to grow, like, you know, like would Green Bull have to like interact with the plant first before being able to sprout it, or can he just immediately copy whatever he wants?
See, based on him being the woods fruit, I would say within a set radius around him, he can just spawn his consciousness into any fauna. Right? But the thing about that is, just because he can spawn himself into any fauna doesn't mean he doesn't retain damage based on certain things.
Yeah, it's pretty much just like a greenhouse version of
Pika.
Who?
Pika.
Yeah, Pika.
Yeah, like Pika and that. It's like,
Oh wait, no, sorry, not Pika.
Pizarro.
Who am I now? Pizarro.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. So it's like, because we've seen him get like tendrils and stuff cut off, and he was fine, but. And like we saw him got burned, but when he got burnt by Momo, it wasn't with Haki. We haven't seen the tree get cut down with Haki. And do you know what the interesting thing about that is? If he becomes the fucking Atom Wood, right? Which is that giant ass tree on Elbaf, what do we know the giants have as an ability? The Elbaf spears, the Ikkoku sovereignties.
Yes.
The Conquerors, like they're just doing massive projectile air slashes trying to cut down Green Bull. A rampaging world tree.
Jeebus.
And the craziest part about that would be, it would mark the beginning of the end of the story in the sense that that tree, based on what Frankie said, that tree has survived every conflict throughout history. Right? But the symbolism of the tree getting cut down would mean this is the final conflict. Like, starting. For a lot of people, it would, like, symbolize the end times on Elbaf, potentially. But, at the same point in time, it would be done at the behest of Luffy, who is the sun god, who we know the giants praise the sun. So it'd be like, do you listen to your deity and cut down the symbol of your might? Or do you go against your deity and let your symbol of might rampage across you? You know what I mean?
Yeah, because, I mean, Elbaf is pretty much the king... I don't really... Wait, are they a kingdom?
Is Elbaf a village or is Elbaf an island? That's the first question.
I assume it's an island.
Because it's been used in the context of it's both a village and an island. So it could just be Elbaf village on War Island.
Could be like a village on Elbaf.
Hang on, I'm gonna bring up
Geography question, guys. Trivia, right?
Oh my god, this one's difficult, right? When did Elbaf happen?
Don't forget, though, too, you also have to be careful of your sources as well, because, again, translation issues occur almost every day.
Damn right. Chapter 1070, was that Elbaf?
Somewhere in that range, yeah.
No.
Give or take 5 or 2 chapters.
It was 1080-ish.
I kind of do wish now, since, like, I actually did learn how to read Japanese and everything like that, because there's probably so many cute, or like short references and stuff that we miss.
Oh,
on the translation.
That's why I used to really love back in the day. Reading Ohara's breakdowns of the kanji in the Japanese context. Because they used to add a lot of different nuances that would be missed in that, like speech patterns and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Chapter 1076, the last 2 pages. War Land, Elbaf New World. So, the island could potentially be called Warland, and Elbaf be the village on the coastline that, like, Dory and Broggy are from.
Yeah.
Because we also have people like Saul, who, even though he's from the West Blue, is like, you know, Elbaf isn't the only place that giants come from.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be contextually read as like different things potentially. You know what I mean? Hang on, I'm gonna see if there's another example of it. Yo, Egghead has been such a good arc. I kind of don't want it to end just yet, but like when it ends, it's gonna be like we're at Elbaf, man. The next arc is Elbaf. Holy hell, that hasn't sunk in yet.
I mean, we are at 1092. Like, there's really like, I'm honestly thinking that we're probably gonna be visiting.
1099.
We'll be hitting Elbaf at like 1095, because I feel like Oda would want to finish it off at like a nice halfway chapter, right? Or like a nice halfway number.
1099 ends on them making it to Elbaf with chapter 1100 starting on Elbaf, I reckon that's fair. So it gives us 8 more chapters on Egghead. Because in those 8 chapters, you got to think, we're going to have the Straw Hats start clashing against the Vice Admirals, Luffy versus Kizaru in Gear 5, Luffy versus Kizaru arguably with Kizaru awakening. So that's 3 chapters gone there, right? We're going to have the stuff with the ancient giant robot. That's probably another chapter's worth of stuff there. Then that's 4 chapters. That puts us at 1097 at the moment. Right? So like 2 chapters of like, are we going to be able to escape or not? Is the robot going to attack us or not? And then maybe some exposition from Saturn. And then wrapping up there. And that's not even including Caribou and the Blackbeard Pirates. What if the Blackbeard Pirates are there to pick up Caribou? I'd never thought of that, but what if that's a possibility?
God. Like, honestly, people are underestimating Caribou. Like, a lot of people would probably be underestimating Caribou's value here. Just the amount of impact that he could have worldwide if he does end up leaking out information. Like, he could literally, shake up the world how he sees fit. Because he would be quote-unquote referenced as a direct source.
Okay, I'm changing my mind. I am changing my mind. Blackbeard's going to abandon the hunt for One Piece.
Oh, okay.
temporarily.
Temporarily.
Because Blackbeard's big thing has always been, and we saw this pre-time skip, he'll give it a go if it's in front of him, but he can come around and get it later. Like Luffy. Oh, I'll go get Straw Hat. Oh, he escaped. We'll meet again later. It'll be alright. Came across Ace instead. Right?
Yeah.
He gets Caribou. Instead of going after One Piece going further down the New World, he goes to Wano to get Pluton. Shanks went to Wano to stop Blackbeard attacking and then left. Only for Blackbeard to come later instead. Imagine if they rename Pluton the new Saber of Sebek. Firing the Pluton is like them unsheathing Zebek's saber.
Okay.
So they go to Wano, decimate Wano, opening up the borders of Wano forcibly. Right?
Right.
And then, by then, another arc has passed, and they're heading to Fishman Island instead to get Shirahoshi.
Gosh.
And do you know what could add another layer of context to it? If Katarina Devon is on Egghead to pick up Caribou, do you know who she may come in contact with briefly?
Who?
Luffy. Do you know why that would be super important?
Because of Nefertari Cobra?
If
Oh, sorry, did I completely derail for a second there? My brain's...
No, that's alright. If Katarina Devon meets Luffy and can copy into Luffy, and then the Blackbeard pirates destroy Wano and head to Fishman Island, the prophecy of Straw Hat Luffy destroying Fishman Island may be the Blackbeard pirates, and that's Katarina Devon.
Oh, Jeebus.
Because she turns into Luffy to try and take Shirahoshi away before they notice.
I will say, though, maybe... I guess... I don't really know how it works, but Shirahoshi's older brother... what's his name?
Fukabushi, I think.
See, yeah, it's the names that have like Ushis and with S's
Yeah.
and H's that I just can't pronounce to save my life. He has very good perception hockey though. Would he be able to suss Katarina Devon at the last moment before she?
I think they will no matter what, because I think Katarina Devon's personality isn't a lot like Luffy's, so she's going to have a hard time mimicking, so she's going to be relying on Caribou's description of Luffy. Right? So that could add a whole new context for stuff there. Yeah?
Yeah.
But the problem is I have with that is where would that conflict go after that? Because this is gonna... Let's put a pause. Let's say that that's the theory, right? And now I'm speculating on a potential other theory based on that theory. Surrounding Fishman Island, underneath the Red Line, underneath Marineford and the Grand Line and Marijois are a bunch of underwater volcanoes. Could we get Blackbeard versus Akainu on Fishman Island?
Gosh.
Because that would be an intensely high tier fight, wouldn't it? And it could arguably, metaphorically, pop the bubble of Fishman Island. And The ironic thing about that is Akainu, despite Fishman Island being part of the not much of a leap if that's the case, and she takes Luffy next. Yeah, no. So like, the world government doesn't care about the fishmen, even though they're an ally. So Fishman Island is the one world government island where Akainu could probably fight all out and have no repercussions.
Which is sad, but yeah, it would be a very pragmatic choice, all considering.
Which could result in whoever loses the fight drowns if they pop the bubble. And it's left very ambiguous if Blackbeard or Akainu, which one of them would have survived the fight. You know what I mean?
It's just, I guess as of right now, I don't really know what Oda has planned in terms for Akainu, because he's been stirring for a long while about wanting to have done something, but because of his position, his political position, it's not quote unquote pragmatic for Akainu to just jump in now and do whatever he wants. That's why he's got like guys like Kizaru and Greenville who are just going around and doing whatever they want. Heck, we haven't even had an update of what Fujitora has been going at.
We don't even know if Fujitora is still in the bad books.
Exactly. Because there could have been a lot of pardoning done after Fujitora helped protect the world nobles from Sabo and the other revolutionaries. Like, there was really no resolve after that conflict. In terms of Fuji.
No, there wasn't. I now am overwhelmed with theories. And I don't know how I feel about it. Because, right, one of the problems with theories is if you over-theorize, it can ruin your enjoyment of the story. If you're like, oh, this could have been cool.
Yep.
But, at the same point in time, everything that I'm thinking of right now, I'm only thinking of in the sense that it's, like, in character, and it would make sense. I mean, Akainu vs. Kuma is never a fight I would have thought or expected to see. But at the same point in time, I'm now so glad I saw it. And it's got me thinking again. This chapter talked about when Akainu caught Bonnie, but we also know that was a setup for an Akainu and Blackbeard conflict.
Yeah.
Which, if I'm looking at Blackbeard at the moment, right, without using Pluton itself, if you needed someone to open the borders of Wano, Blackbeard's one of those guys that can do that. Right?
Yes, very much so.
If you're looking at an evil straw hat on Fishman Island destroying the island, Katarina Devon can do that. Right? I feel like there's maybe a warpath here. And I think, do you know what? Adding on to the possibilities of that, if you've got... We don't know where Uranus is, do we? So one ancient weapon we've got no clue about.
It's the moon.
I'm gonna go on a limb and actually say Uranus is in paradise, the first half of the Grand Line, and we missed it.
Really?
Yeah. Do you know why? Pluton is in the New World. Poseidon is in the halfway point between the New World and the Grand Line.
Oh, I see. And then Uranus would actually be at the very start.
And I think it was just maybe on one of the pathways that we didn't see. And maybe another character has access to it at the moment. So, from the world government standpoint, if they saw Blackbeard take out Wano and take Pluton, and then they find out that he's heading for Poseidon in Fishman Island, they have to stop him before he collects a third one that's unbeknownst to us in the in just the first half of the Grand Line.
You know, actually, what I want to point out as well is how Uranus itself, just as a planet, it's a gaseous planet, right? And we've always got like these references to Man Marked by Flames, the Sun People, Nika the Sun God.
Gaseous.
Do you think Uranus is actually a bomb that has to be ignited?
Do you know what? No. Do you know what I think Uranus is? Uranus is supposed to be the god of rain, isn't he? Or am I butchering that?
No, that's... No, I don't think so. Uranus is a god reference. Mythology 101! Oh, I should have paid more attention.
God of heavens and sky. Symbol of
Yeah.
masculinity.
Yep.
Hang on.
Uranus is has like a lot of ice references too.
Okay, so he's capable of controlling the air and the winds, sky, weather, mimicry. As a god of skies, Uranus is able to physically mimic, transform into the sky and the weather itself. Right. The reason why I was saying that, because like, there's a lot of people that are like, dragons Uranus, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking Uranus might be actually a terraforming sky island. Something that you can take to a dead island and change the weather or the atmosphere of that entire island.
Okay.
And the reason why I say that is you've got Pluton that can level an island.
Yeah.
Which is a great battleship. You've got Poseidon, which controls the oceans, but also the wildlife in the oceans, also can destroy an island, right? But Uranus, being the god of the sky and that, makes me think of up above. If it's not a battleship, imagine if it's just like a weather cloud, right? That you can use to destroy an island by destroying the weather phenomenon of the island, making it barren, or reseeding it and repopulating it.
Okay.
And the reason why I say that it would be possibly like another crazy alternative here is because you've got like land, sea, and air, but all of those ancient weapons could potentially be recontextualized to something else. You've got Poseidon, who helped carry people from one island to the next. You've got Pluton that could level an island, and then Uranus that could regrow everything on that new fertilized soil of the island that Pluton destroyed. Recreating resources. Re-terraforming the Grand Line. You know what I mean? And examples of where one may have been used without the tangent of the others. You've got the Revolutionary Army that used to hide on Baltigo, right? The land of white soil. Potentially, Pluton was used there, and they meant to use Uranus there, but never got around to it. So it's just a dead island.
Yeah, because a lot of there are some landmarks like the Baltigo that just don't really have that much of an explanation to come with it, because you don't just get random plains of white stone like that just for nothing.
Yeah. But if it's like scorched from a giant explosion in the past,
yeah,
could explain it. And because as well, right? The ancient kingdom we've talked about this in the past. The ancient kingdom is so hard to get a gauge on, because it's like they seemed like they were advancing way too fast and just taking over neighboring countries. And although most people probably seemed like they were nice and the technology would have been convenient, we've also talked about the dangers of over technological advancement in locations and a lack of resources. So it makes sense that they were working on the ultimate way to never run out of resources.
Yep, just to replicate everything that you needed.
The way that could work is they had two competing theories. Like, have you ever played Halo? Are you a fan of Halo at all?
Unfortunately, no. I've been trying to mostly get into the lore in the books, but I've never played the video games.
You should 110% go down the rabbit hole for it sometime. But one of the big things in that is you've got a very ancient civilization called the Forerunners that are very, very mysterious, right?
Okay.
Without trying to spoil too much, at one point in time, they were left with two competing ideologies, right?
Okay.
They had an uncontrollable problem plaguing the entire galaxy and universe that was just infinitely spreading, right?
Okay.
This
Oh wait. Okay, so this is kind of like the blight in Final Fantasy 16. Okay. Okay.
this expanding issue would consume all organic matter,
Yeah.
right? So they had two competing factions at the time. One was to kill all living things to prevent this thing being able to eat. The other was to save all living things digitally. I'm don't know why I can't say digitally at the minute. Digitally save all consciousness so that they could upload them back to bodies later on. Right?
Okay.
If you look at the ancient weapons and the devil fruits, you could look at them as two competing factions of science. One to terraform with these big machines, the other making devil fruits so you could terraform on a lower level. You got people like Greenbull that can replenish all the natural life from a plant standpoint. You know what I mean? And if you look at the utility of the devil fruits, all the devil fruits have a purpose. Look at Law's fruit. It's the op fruit. It's about operations. They're really high-tech abilities to make all conveniences in life easier.
Yeah. I mean, heck, Law's Devil Fruit was able to get rid of pretty much a
reason.
cancer.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like, if you look at the two competing factions from that regard, what happens if people weaponize them?
Yeah. Yeah. Especially stuff like Devil Fruits, like Doc Q's, where his whole thing is pretty much just causing viruses for killing people.
Yeah, so
Which is ironic because he's a doctor.
so that now makes it like way harder to deal with, like, you know, like what the purposes of these things are, if that makes sense. It's hard. It's definitely hard. Getting back to the chapter though, we then cut over to Egghead, where Luffy versus Kizaru is starting. You have been around here. Ged and Kuma have been around here for a minute, so you guys know that for a fucking long ass time, I have been on Camp Kizaru. I have been that little koi swimming up the waterfall against Eggs for Brecky's reign of terror against Kizaru. Right? And while my man's not here to defend himself, I'm going to take this opportunity to slander him with full force.
Alright.
Luffy is fighting Kizaru here in Gear 4 Snake Man. We know that Kaido needed Future Sight to match the speed of Snake Man.
Yeah.
And Kizaru is blocking... Although Luffy's not using advanced armament or advanced conquerors, Kizaru is blocking Luffy in Snake Man with just no haki.
I know. I was when I saw that panel, I was thinking like, oh, it's Luffy just like, you know, using. But no, it looks like he's using Python, which is one of his fastest attacks in Gear 4 Snake Man.
Yep. He's not just hitting him with Python; he's hitting him with multiple Pythons.
Yeah. He's basically using the he's basically doing what he did against Katakuri.
Black
And
Mamba.
Katakuri has one of the best foresights in the entire series.
This is essentially him doing the Black Mamba technique. And I'm just pointing out here, if we look at Luffy, right? If Luffy in Gear 4 Snake Man is as strong as an Admiral with no haki, that just shows you how much stronger Luffy needs to get physically himself.
True, because we've had a lot of transformations, but Luffy's base foundation hasn't actually really improved that much.
And when it does improve that much, he will be the best in the verse. But until then, these other guys are competing and are showing better physical strength than him without it. For example, our Kijin Garp practicing daily by boxing and destroying ships as strong as Diamond with no haki. We haven't seen Luffy been doing that without haki. Note to
I
self:
also
never
I
have
like
the.
the reference of like
I love that
just
comment.
like the short panel of like Luffy coming at Kizaru in that short one. How Kizaru is literally like using his open palms,
Yeah,
kind of like a Buddha.
but if you actually look at that, he's using those open palms to shoot lasers.
Yeah.
But look at where the lasers are coming from. They're not coming from the hands himself. He's shooting light from around at Luffy.
So is Kizaru also doing his own kind of speedy punch movements?
Kind of. I think so. If you look at his left hand, see the two lasers coming off from the left? How
Yeah.
they're shown to be coming from around either side of his beam of light from his hand?
Yep.
The way I see it is he's sitting there with his palms up, using his observation haki to just block Luffy with his physical body, and while he's doing it, he's using the telekinetic abilities of his Devil Fruit to form light into smaller areas to shoot these lasers. But because Luffy's in Snake Man, he's dodging them relatively. Especially with the future sight that Luffy has. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But then what happens is Luffy comes in with a mad left hook. Kizaru takes the opportunity to, at the speed of light, shoot away from the island, which this adds to something that I've been saying in a while here. Luffy, like these characters in One Piece have been stated to be moving at the speed of light for a freaking long time. Like Luffy coming off the time skip was like light slow. We've got 3D2Y where Luffy's stated to be moving at 10 times the speed of light and stuff like that. But the big thing that is consistent in the manga is even though these people have been stated to be moving faster than light and stuff like that, they don't have infinite mobility with that speed, right? They don't have the ability to maintain that speed and just run around the world a couple of times that we've seen so far, right? It's normally like you've got like maybe like a 10 or 20 or 50 meter radius that you can move that speed in, but it's like a technique that's limited to by how long you can maintain it, if that makes sense, right? That's why you got people that have different levels of shave, right? You got someone like CP9 who can use shave and move like 20 meters in one direction, but then you got people like Luffy in Gear 2 who can just maintain it and just keep spamming it, right? Kizaru here, although he's the speed of light, he's spamming the speed of light with just infinite mobility because he's a low gear. So he's always going to look like he can outpace people because he can just move his body at any distance maintaining these speeds. And as we see in this attack here, he shoots a beam of light. The beam of light is traveling to Luffy, and then Kizaru outspeeds his own beam of light to kick Luffy in the face, meaning he traveled faster than light. And we see him say, speed is power, and you see him ramp up the speed in multiple stages of the light. Right? So you can't argue that it's just he shot a beam of light and the light hit Luffy, because he shot the beam of light, traveled down the beam of light, moving faster than the light to kick Luffy. He hits Luffy before the laser does. So it's going to be really hard to disagree with that. I love how the chat's just going back and forth about like the receipts battles.
You know, actually, just short moving on from that. Sorry, as we were going through the chapter, I wanted to point out this interesting trait of dialogue between Jewelry Bonnie and Kizaru. Like,
oh yes,
so
the friendship thing. Where is that?
Yeah, that one really just it's so short, but it's such a unique detail because I don't know, Kizaru's a relatively old guy, right? He's like what, 60?
Kizaru's. Yeah, I think he's 60.
Let me just search this up. Borsalino age. No, sorry, he's 58. So he's relatively old.
Yeah, he's a decade younger than Big Mom.
Yeah, he's a decade younger than Big Mom. So it's just that why would he call Jewelry Bonnie an old friend?
Ooh, wait, where do you see the old friend comment?
when it's trading off from Kizaru here, you've gotten quite a bit taller, Bunny. Kids these days sure grow up fast. So why would he be calling her a kid if in the next couple panels he says, "Please don't make me hurt, Tap. More old friends than I have to for this mission," before he kicks her away. Old friends.
I
Right?
think that's just more because Bonnie's age is unconfirmed, right?
Yeah.
We know that Vegapunk was captured before Sanji was born. Right?
Yeah.
So Sanji's 22, right?
Sanji's 22, but he's already got like a full on.
Ooh.
I'm sorry. I just laugh at sometimes of like character ages and how they actually look in manga and whatnot, because they always look so much older than they actually are.
Oh, 100%. Sanji's 22, which probably puts Kizaru being captured at least 23 years ago, if not more, because we don't know that Judge and Sora met when Judge was in Mads, right? But at least 23 years ago, Vegapunk was captured. Bonnie is stated in this form to be roughly 24 years old, right? So there is pre-time skip 22 years in which Kizaru could have had an intimate relationship as a father figure to Bonnie, potentially speaking. Just to add on to that, we know that Kuma was a revolutionary in the ASL flashback, which was 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? So say even on the short end, Kuma hadn't decided to be turned into a pacifista yet. Bonnie's been friends with Kizaru for 12 years, potentially. 12 to 22 years. So, I feel like in that regard, saying, old friends doesn't not count. Especially when she's been on the run for 2 to 3 years now.
Okay.
So
I also really like the fact that Kizaru just did not give a crap about literally hitting Bonnie with the same attack that sent Hawkins literally
Just
to kill a life.
yeah. Well, actually, talking about that, this is just another interesting point. This is the first time we've seen Kizaru turn full body light to dodge.
Yeah.
So he is capable of it when he wants to. Also, I think the reason why he dodged this instead of just wrapping around it like we've seen other characters do in the past is because Bonnie's timely thrusts may work on Logia's.
Yeah, maybe.
And
I also like how Kizaru has I don't know, just the way he dodged too. He's got the schmoving sides to
this reminded me of Carrot going after Katakuri and just getting stomped, literally walked over. You know what I mean? I also love that Frankie goes to hit the Man of Light with a replica of his own laser.
Yeah.
And then he's like, what? You're gone?
It's kind of it's basically like facing a guy with a long sword, then you pulling out a dagger on him.
It's like a guy pulls out a gun and you pull out a bullet. And it's like...
That's a really good one, actually.
I see you know how to play gunny shooty. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, what are you doing? Did you not see me 5 minutes?
Honestly, Frankie, seriously, that's kind of not a low IQ moment right there.
He panicked, man. He didn't know what to do. He just pulled out his biggest attack. It's not his fault that his biggest attack is literally just a discount. It's a discount wish version of Kizaru's ability. Also, we see, because Kizaru kicks Bonnie, Kizaru kicks Luffy too, but Kizaru kicks Bonnie into the grid. We see that the dome isn't just a vertical dome. It's also a bubble around the whole of top of Egghead. So it it has walls and stuff like that as well, which is important to know. Which brings me to another point, right? Luffy got kicked through the barrier and got torched. And Luffy mentions that he tried twice to get back up. But when he shows up at
Oh.
the end of the chapter, it's really important to note that it's also after the Vegapunks have found out the passcode of Yorks and arguably deactivated the grid.
Oh, okay.
So maybe Luffy only got back up because the grid was deactivated and he was trying to and just getting shot down.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough.
Which, as a sidebar, can we just talk about how we now need next chapter to open on a little bit of a flashback to see all the vice admirals that are underneath see a giant go flying, jump at the roof, blow up, fall down, jump up, blow up, fall down, and they're just underneath him just like, what the shit is happening? Like, I want to see Chinzilla's neck, like, I want to see his head, like, recoil back into his body, like Luffy doing a Kongan, because he's just, like, so shook with what's happening above him. Is that it? Is that mean?
I want to see Doll pull off like a random what the F face, just completely like.
Seeing
Can you
all the
imagine?
vice admirals with her face, and even better, seeing Saturn do it.
Saturn. God.
But Luffy goes Gomu Gomu no Giant and grabs Kizaru here, and I think it's also really important to note he's not using Haki.
No, he's not.
So Kizaru arguably is letting this happen. At least in this capacity here. Right? Kizaru got caught off guard and got grabbed, but instead of just blitzing out of it, he's like, there you are, and he's actually intrigued in the form.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So, I think we are next chapter going to open up with Luffy versus Kizaru, and then we're going to cut away for a chapter and a half. I think for a chapter and a half, instead of getting Luffy versus Kizaru, we're going to get everyone else's matchups, the plans, and then the giant robot. Right? Then after that, we're going to cut back to Luffy versus Kizaru, and Luffy's going to be shitting on Kizaru a bit in Gear 5. Then Kizaru starts using some advanced forms of Haki and brings it back to an even battle. Then Luffy starts using advanced forms of Haki, and it looks like it's like an even battle, but Luffy looks like he's overwhelming Kizaru a bit.
Yeah.
And then it's going to get to the point where Kizaru uses his awakening, but then the battle's going to be cut short, and it's going to give Luffy pre-knowledge of what a Logia can do when they're awakened, so while he's in Elbaf, he can come up with a plan to counter it with Gear 5. Because I think that's the important tool for this. I think Kizaru's awakening is going to be one of the lesser awakenings, because even though he's light, his Logia doesn't have necessarily inherently bad byproducts. Like, he doesn't freeze anything he's nearby. He doesn't melt anything he's nearby. You know what I mean?
There's really no negatives other than taking away people's eyesight by burning their retina.
Or burning them, like Luffy saying his hands are burning here. Right? But in that capacity, like even here, when Luffy's like, "Man, it really burns," that could be in regard to the grid shooting him down with the lasers, not picking up Kizaru. But like with Kizaru's awakening, I see it because Kizaru, until this chapter and last chapter, Kizaru had never been shown using his element telekinetically, which is a staple of Logias, which made me start to ask the question, is Kizaru's light Logia both better than other Logias and worse than other Logias in the same sense that the Yummy Yummy no Mi is, both being light and dark? Because Blackbeard can't turn intangible. Maybe Kizaru can't just telekinetically control all light nearby. Maybe he needs to, when he's telekinetically controlling the light, he needs to gather it up to use it first.
Or maybe he has to use it at a slower pace, in a sense, where he can't achieve as fast, he can't replicate the speed of light, in a sense, where he has, because his brain just can't keep up with that speed.
See, the way I see it in that regard is it's like, when people telekinetically control their elements that we've seen in the past, they can just do it freely, right?
Yeah.
But with Kizaru, Because light is everywhere, the light that's everywhere isn't inherently harmful. He's got to, like, gather up the light that's in the area until it condenses and makes a laser, and then that's how he's shooting those lasers, and they're a bit slower. And when I say slower, I mean slower to initially form, not slower once they're activated. Whereas when he does something like the Yanasaki Sacred Jewel, he's producing the element himself.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Because we see here that, like, in the same vein that Kizaru's, like, gathering up those lasers and shooting them at Luffy, we also see him, again, outpace Luffy doing the same thing with his light. And we know that he can accelerate and decelerate, but maybe that's only him in light form. He can't make other projectiles move faster in that regard either, if that makes sense. It's a very complicated thing to be able to go through. That being said, thank goodness we don't have a break next week. It's finally...
Little do you know, the next chapter is even going to be more epic, and that's when we get it.
I think the next chapter is going to be really epic.
I'm genuinely thinking we're going to get the proper, like, Lucci versus Zoro continuation.
Do you think
they're still fighting outside the dome? We don't know anything that's going on there.
Do you think we get that, or do you think what happens is because the domes may be down now because they cracked the passcode, the vice admirals start pushing up? So we got Luffy and Kizaru, Zoro versus Lucci. And then Sanji leads some of the Straw Hats, not all of them, but some of them, to fight the Vice Admirals that are advancing. So maybe Sanji versus Doberman, or something like that. The only other problem is, though, that we also have the 50 mark pacifistas now. So the second that barricade is down, there should be a huge set of forces coming up. You know what I mean? Imagine Zoro versus Lucci and Luffy versus Kizaru, but the backdrop is an entire army making their way up. That would be a pretty pretty daunting feeling or experience in the background. But that being said, there are still some things that I don't think we've necessarily had exposed to us yet. In fact, even going a step further, the ending of this chapter with the robot's eyes opening up, the last panel even looks like it's in the flashback sequence. In shading, in terms of shading, you know what I mean? So I wonder if even maybe next chapter opens up, we've got 1 or 2 pages of Luffy and Kizaru. So like, page 1 is Luffy versus Kizaru initiating, page 2 is Zoro versus Lucci initiating, and then we go into a flashback of why the robot's waking up. That could be the structure for the beginning of next week, I reckon. But I'm also very shocked, because since the Vega Force 01 got destroyed, the Sunny's toppled over on its side. Right? So the only way they're getting out of there is if someone can pick up the Sunny. Which Luffy could do in giant form, or that giant robot could do. Otherwise, what are they going to do? Coup diverse with the Sunny on its side? Because that would be very stressful for the Sunny, to say the least. Wouldn't it? I don't know. What are your predictions for next chapter at this point?
Yeah, if we don't get the continuation of the Zoro versus Lucci fight, we might get the cut of... We might even get a brief snippet, maybe just like one or two panels of the aftermath of Mary Joa before we head back. But
Mm.
in terms of the fight, I do think Luffy will have his fair like shot with Kizaru, and it will be shown that he does have an edge for a little while. And I kind of hate to say this, but I want to say that before Kizaru goes absolutely nuts and balls to the wall, that's when they escape. So we don't actually see what Kizaru is fully capable of.
Actually, do you know what? I'm just gonna be completely problematic here and ask another question. Have we seen Akainu
Go ahead.
after this point? Because this was a flashback to yesterday, but haven't we also seen Akainu reacting to the news that Straw Hat took Vegapunk hostage?
Oh. Whoops, yeah, I forgot about that.
So I wonder if this takes place before or after Akainu learning that. You know what I mean? Because depending on when that is, there is a reasonable conversation to be had that Akainu may have given other orders, because we've still got Seraphim, S Flamingo, S Gecko, and S Croc unaccounted for, which were last implied to be heading to Cross Guild. But Akainu very well could have diverted them potentially to come somewhere else. Yeah, why is One Piece supposed to be ending and we've got like too many moving parts?
Oh, gosh, man.
Okay, here we go. 3 months ago, Sacred Marijois, CP5 was dispatched to ascertain the truth, but found no evidence. Their ships mysteriously vanished after leaving Egghead. Subsequent agents were sent by CP7, then CP8, but none of them returned to the government. This is Egghead. I want to speak to one of the Gorosei. After a discussion between the 5 elders and an unknown figure, the genius scientist's betrayal had been made clear. The elders made the call to have Dr. Vegapunk assassinated. Cypherpole Aegis Zero undertook the mission. But anticipating a counterattack by Vegapunk, the elders chose to make a visit in person with Admiral Kizaru as protection. And then we see that the fleet with Saturn Kizaru is already on its way to Egghead. Reinforcements were requested from naval bases far and wide. The deployment made it clear that they were expecting war. And into that situation sailed the ship of Straw Hat Luffy, Emperor of the Sea. The arrival of this unexpected variable unsettled the government, to say the least. And then we have Akainu reacting to Straw Hat being present. But then we clip... But the way in which it's being shown, we have Akainu learning about Straw Hat Luffy, right? But then we cut to Luffy in Gear 5 laughing. We cut to one of the other Gorosei members, Walkyrie, saying not again. And then we go, but regardless, the resolution of this incident the following day would inflict a kind of shock the world never saw coming. So that's chapter 1078. I'm bringing that up, actually, because that may be some crazy-ass dramatic irony there. Right? Because, do you have the chapter up, or can you see the chapter? Because from a visual standpoint, this is actually something to take into consideration here. Right? So it's like page 12 of the of chapter 1078, right? They were talking about previous events, doing a rundown, but showing the fleet on their way to the incident. But then Akainu's reaction, but also Luffy in Gear 5. Why is Luffy in Gear 5 there? Or is that the aftermath of the Egghead Island incident being teased? Post Luffy vs. Kizaru.
Gosh.
Like, I know that's a red hot way to jump in that conflict, right? But just looking at it, Akainu, what? Straw Hat? Like, Akainu's shook sort of thing. That's Akainu learning about Luffy being on Egghead, right? But the other Gorosei being like, not again? What's the not again? Is it not again that Straw Hat Luffy's shown up? Or, why are we seeing the warrior god of war? You know what I mean? Out of the Gorosei. Unless he's reacting to maybe something happening to Saturn. No, I feel like I'm going down way too many rabbit holes. Because Topman Warcury is his name, right? And just to specify, warrior god of legislation is his role. Okay, so he's a lawmaker. Okay, I don't remember him being legislation. I thought he was war, hence the name Warcury. But, right, looking there, Luffy's laughing and smiling in Gear 5. He was not in Gear 5 at the moment when the world government found out he was on Egghead, was he? So, I think maybe that's teasing post Egghead. And then we're sort of fading back into the resolution. If that makes sense. Because if you actually look at the pages as well, it's a blend of shaded background and not shaded background, implying some of it's flashback, some of it's not. I don't like to think that Kizaru's lost. Because I like Kizaru.
Yeah.
But
I actually I haven't asked this yet from you, like, in terms of what's going on. What is your opinion of Luffy going up against an admiral after he's fought a Yonko? Not the other way around.
I have thought for the longest that admirals and Yonko are equal to each other. There are going to be Yonko that Luffy fights after Kizaru. Like Blackbeard or Shanks or Buggy.
Yes.
Right?
Buggy.
Just because all of the Yonko and all of the admirals are of the same caliber. I think there are situations where all of them beat one of the others. Right? Like, I think it's based on matchups and that sort of thing, if that makes sense. For example, right now, Kizaru is showing better speed feats than Kaido. I definitely agree that Kizaru's lasers should be able to pierce Kaido. Right? And we even saw Big Mum comment that Frankie should have shot her with the lasers because that would have actually done something to her in Onigashima. So, like, Kizaru's got the ability to hurt them, and he's got the speed to keep up with them, right? But at the same point in time, I don't see Kizaru beating Akainu ever. At the same point in time, there's non-canon movies that imply that Shanks could beat Kizaru and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So it's like, I look at it and think, it's scissors, paper, rock, right? They're all on the same tier, but it depends on who they're matching up against for whatever reason, right? There are some that are definitely portrayed better than others at the moment. For example, Kaido's been the most fleshed out person on this tier yet, so he looks the best overall, even if some of his feats are being overshadowed now in lesser extents, if that makes sense. I think the Yonko were necessary for the world government to point to say this is the justification for why we do what we do. Which is why they were allowed to continue to operate, and why the world government won't interfere with the Yonko's organization, even if they're kidnapping Marines, unless given authorization to, like with Blackbeard on Amazon Lily, right? The reason being, though, you can also look at the world government as, like the Marines, as 4 Yonko crews put together, right? You got 3 admirals and a fleet admiral. So that's the equivalent of what 4 Yonko would be, right? We know each admiral has a gold transponder snail, which allows a buster call, right? All a buster call is, like, X Drake was the 6th strongest person, or like, you know, 10th to 6th strongest person on a Yonko crew, wasn't he? Right? He was one of their top 10 fighters. Right? And X Drake was just a rear admiral, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So you could look at it in that sense. I look at it as post-time skip Drake probably, if he stayed in the Marines, would have been a vice admiral. Even if it was a shitty vice admiral, right? But you could look at it and say he's still just a rear admiral.
Sorry, it's just whenever I get told of Drake, it's just sad.
It is. But like Drake still hasn't showcased Haki on screen. Right?
I know.
So you can make the argument that Drake is still only about as strong as a rear admiral. He didn't get stronger over the time skip. That is a potential argument to be made, right?
It's also fair too because he has been under the umbrella of Kaido for forever.
Oh yeah.
And being in that environment, once you secure yourself a spot, you're pretty much safe.
So,
until somebody does try to take over your spot. But in terms of the Toby Ropo, like, I just don't see anybody below the Toby Ropo being able to uprise and defeat.
Yeah. So
Drake at that point.
So this is a perfect example here, right? We have a CP9 member and a rear admiral in a Yonko crew being the weakest and the strongest outside of the top 4 fighters.
Yes.
So that gives us a good gauge of where Marines fit into those crews based on rank, right? I look at a Buster Call because the only Buster Call we've seen was called by Spandam, but we know normally they're led by one admiral, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
I look at a Buster Call as a Yonko crew without the top 3 commanders. So you got a Yonko and the Topiropo rocking up with a bunch of fodder. That's essentially what a Buster Call is. Right? Now, we currently have... I think we've actually exploded now. We went from 23 to 32 Vice Admirals in One Piece.
Yeah.
Hang on. We'll do this head count here just to double check this, right? 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 32, but we've got Virgo and T-Bone there that have since been non-hered, right? So we've got 30 Vice Admirals. We know Vice Admirals have a huge range of ability. Garp's a Vice Admiral. Momoshiki and Chatton are Vice Admirals, and they were considered for the Admiral position. You know what I mean? So, I look at it and go, for the most part, outside of some outliers, if you have the Vice Admirals being around as strong as the Topiropo or a little bit stronger, the only thing that the world government is really lacking is top 3 commanders from a Yonko crew. The Admirals can deal with them, but it's a bit of a gap between the Vice Admirals and that. You know what I mean? Hence what the Warlords were made for. disposable warriors that fill that specific range of strength. Top 3 commander. Right? But now, post-time skip, you got the Seraphim that are all essentially just as strong as King, fulfilling that role. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
the way I view it is the world government is essentially 4 Yonko crew... Like, the Marines are 4 Yonko crews put together, but they're never allowed to go all out because they have to police the world. Whereas the Yonko crews have the exact... Like, have 1/4 the level of strength, arguably, but they can operate and mobilize anywhere at any time, no problems. You know what I mean? There's no repercussions for them doing it in that regard. But the problem with that is as well, is even though the vice admirals fulfill that role, and there are some that could be arguably strong enough to be like handling commander level people and stuff like that, the problem that the Marines have is because of that huge jump, it creates a power vacuum in the Marines on that level. You know what I mean? Like, that's where CP0 come into consideration. Because we've seen CP0 handle people on those commander tiers, but also they're just completely disposable. If that makes sense. But at the same point in time, because you can argue individual matchups, if you had a Buster Call and they were going like statistically they're roughly equal to a Yonko crew for the most part if you throw in like 3 Warlords or 3 Seraphim, right? What happens if the Yonko that you're going up against beats the Admiral? All of a sudden it doesn't matter. But vice versa, if the Admiral wins, it doesn't matter the rest of the fodder on the Marine side, does it? On the...
No.
So that's the way I've always viewed it. It's like, it's a battle of numbers, but at the same point in time, the numbers don't matter as much as whoever the top dog is, if they win or lose. If that makes sense. But yeah, I don't know. Do you disagree with that? Do you have your own thoughts on that?
No, not so much. Not so much. I was originally in the same, like, at least close, like, on the shores of the pool in the same area, so I really can't really dispute that.
So, and the problem with it again as well is like,
I guess it's just how far do you consider like a quote unquote like not the head but like a top tier character plays on the main battlefield, right? Because a really good example of this would be the Marine Ford arc, where we had several top tiers and several top tiers like jumping and falling down all in unison, but it's just how their specific powers influence the area.
that's the best example actually.
Because in a sense, like, you know, the 7 warlords,
Yep.
I would have argued had during Marineford, they pretty much had almost every kind of like fodder dealing superpower that you could imagine. Because Dofi's able to control enemy characters with his strings. Gecko Moria literally feeds off of numbers for his power. Boa Hancock can just turn them all into stone, and then a lot of Kuma's attacks are just AoE.
I mean, we also don't take into consideration enough, right? The warlords in Marineford took down some of the commanders of the Whitebeard pirates.
Yes, they did.
Like,
and a lot of people want to like flame like Gecko Moria and the Coriel encounter, but Gecko Moria left the Coriel encounter pretty much unharmed.
Yeah, well, I love this so much because in the manga, it's very important and very different, right?
I know, right?
The altercations are extremely different. You had Curiel pull up on Moria, not do anything to him. So Moria and him were like going relative, but at the same point in time, it's like Jinbei one-shot Moria. But when he one-shot Moria, Moria got back up like immediately after.
I know.
So it's like he pushed him out the way because Jinbei's stronger, but at the same point in time, it didn't matter as much. Like, Doflamingo took down Water Buffalo Atmos.
Yep.
That was one of the 16 division commanders, right? Moria took down the strongest allied fleet captain. with oars,
Mm-hmm.
right? The people that weren't doing much in that encounter really was like Boa was just like a dead weight. Mihawk, although he didn't actively do it, Mihawk just blocked Vista, which was one of their strongest commanders as well.
Yeah.
So, like, you had 3 commanders blocked immediately by the Warlords. And it's like, even if the Warlords would have won or would have lost, they blocked them enough so that it's like other people could do other stuff. And it's like, look, the poor commanders went up against the Admirals. They were outclassed no matter what. But at the same point in time, it's like, the way in which they lost was they were pulling out all the stops, and the second they had a moment of hesitation, they just all got folded all together. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, the moment Whitebeard went down for a second, Josu's out, Marco's out. And that changed the tide of the battle. Until Luffy showed up. You know what I mean? Well, Luffy showed up already before then, but you get what I'm saying. It's like, it was one of those things where it was just like, oh, we are so screwed right now. Like, the shift, the changing of the tide changed dramatically. And that's not even including the possibility of, like, people like Squad being taken out because they thought Whitebeard was going to end him as well after he got a stabbing.
Yeah.
So it's like, they kind of big brained it, but they screwed themselves on the big braining of it. If that makes sense.
The idea was amazing. The execution was subpar.
Yeah. And that's just assuming the Warlords would do their job properly as well. Because, like, you had Jinbei bail. You had Blackbeard bail. All of a sudden, the 7 Warlords are the 5 Warlords. And one of them...
And even then, the 5's loyalty can be taken into question.
Out of those 5, Boa did nothing. Kuma had just been turned into a glorified puppet. So it was the world government and 3 Warlords. Moria, Dofi, Mihawk. When you put it like that, it feels very different, doesn't it? And even with that, they won overwhelmingly.
True.
Like, they didn't... The world government side didn't take a single major loss. So it's like... Oh, shit. It really does recontextualize Marineford. And it's like... I feel like the Whitebeard Pirates were the strongest pirate crew pre-time skip. I feel like pre-time skip, they were by far and large the strongest Yonko crew. Right? And I think that's backed up by the fact that we see in the Yamato flashback with Ace that a lot of the headliners didn't have Smile Fruits pre-time skip. So Kaido didn't have Smiles pre-time skip running in the same capacity. Right? So it's like, since Whitebeard passed, that's when Kaido started getting, like, a lot more... Like, we know Doflamingo started the Age of Smile just before Marineford, but Kaido hadn't been getting... Like, his crew hadn't gotten them yet, realistically speaking. Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, the Beast Pirates were nerfed. The Big Mum Pirates didn't have the likes of Capone... but they also didn't have the Sun Pirates. Like, all their allies were gone. It was just the Big Mum Pirates pre-time skip, right? Yeah. So it was like Whitebeard was probably the strongest. Then it's a toss-up between the other 3 Yonko crews. You can argue Shanks's was the strongest because of the Haki, but like Big Mum's crew had the numbers, but Kaido had like King and Queen. Who, just those 2 specifically, like, are very hard to deal with. You know what I mean? But, like, as for a crew just rolling up on them and on the world government, it's like, at Marineford's standard, it's like, Whitebeard's crew was the best crew there, and they get completely steamrolled. If they had other crews backing them up, there could have been a different case there, but even by Marineford's end, you already had 3 Yonko crews there. You had the Whitebeard Pirates, the Redhair Pirates, and the Blackbeard Pirates there fighting the world government. So, Even by the end of it, it was 3 Yonko crews versus the Marines alone, and the Marines hadn't taken a single major loss. So it's still really ambiguous as to who would win that conflict. Because when you first experience it, you almost feel like, do you know what? Whitebeard could have pulled this off. We almost won. We almost got our objective, right? But it's like, Sengoku and Garp did fucking nothing. Akainu was the only really injured admiral. But mind you, he took down a Yonko, right?
Yeah.
Kizaru and Aokiji were clean, and half of the warlords were either not present or not fulfilling their roles. Not to mention, you still had the pacifistas annihilating huge groups of people. So it was... I don't know. People think I might be gassing the world government too much there, because you gotta, like, people want to look at it, and it's like, Marineford was from the perspective that Whitebeard was a good guy. So you want to believe that he had a shot. Right? But the dramatic irony is that, realistically speaking, they never had a chance. They just lucked out, and even after getting all the luck in the world, they still fumbled. You know what I mean?
Again, it's always the case of fighting quantity versus quality, but people often underestimate that the Marines often have both.
Yeah.
Like, the fact of the matter is, people like to say, like, oh yeah, but the pirates control the New World. But you also have to understand that the world government has gatekept them from all these quote-unquote other peaceful nations, because once you get pretty much the world government's protection and you're able to pay for it, you're pretty much safe.
I mean, we had Whitebeard running from the world government.
Yes.
So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, oh shit, yeah, they're sort of useless, but at the same point in time that they're useless, it's like, they're also the group. You know what I mean? Anyway, do you have any predictions for next chapter, or any other things you want to bring up?
Other than the stuff that I've said, no. I think I've reached my conclusion.
I am excited to see Kizaru use Haki, because we know that he has advanced armament, because we saw him use it in Marineford, and we saw that he tutored Sentomaru in it.
Yes.
So I'll be excited to see that. The other thing is, I would be interested to see what Akainu's doing now.
Yep.
Also, if Saturn is coming to this situation, and going back to that other chapter, what did they specifically say about Saturn? He wanted to... Was it that he wanted to talk with them himself? Where is that? Okay, here. But anticipating a counterattack by Vegapunk, the Elders chose to make a visit in person with Admiral Kizaru as protection. So, the purpose of Saturn there is to get control over any of the Seraphim. And stuff like that. Because that would be what the counterattack is. Because he has the highest authority on the authority chips. Right? So... Saturn's probably not going to get on the front line, but we also know that the Seraphim and stuff like that need to have orders made in person, right? So, Kizaru at the moment's taking control of the pacifistas with the authority chip. I could see one of the Vegapunks, before we leave, sacrificing their life to give an order to all the things liable to the authority chip to turn back on the Marines, resulting in Saturn having to come out and change the order again. Having like a bit of a back and forth there with the battle of control over the technology. You know what I mean? Especially since Saturn is the warrior god of science. Right? So it'd be ironic for him to be the warrior god that took over the science aspect of war. In that regard. Man, there is way too much shit going on right now. I'm just staring down the rabbit hole of this again. I cannot wait until next week because I'm not hiding my love for Kizaru anymore. All right, I don't really care about any of the admirals. Like, I know a lot of people love Aokiji. I don't really like fuck with Aokiji like that. I don't really fuck with any of the admirals like that. But you know what? Kizaru has always just been like a weapon of a dude, so I'm excited to see him get his just dues. Because I've seen too many people be like, Kizaru's the weakest admiral and stuff like that.
Yep.
And downplay it. And I'm like, just to remind everybody, Aokiji thought Kizaru was going to be the fleet admiral. Because Aokiji didn't want to be fleet admiral. And he only fought Akainu because when Akainu got offered the role, Aokiji was like, what? I can't let you do it. Meaning in Aokiji's perspective, this man, being the oldest admiral, was going to be fleet admiral. So anyone out there that's like, Aokiji's so strong or so smart and that, this is Aokiji's pick. Think about that. Think about that. You know what I mean? That being said, I'm going to wrap the stream up here. I need to go get a bit to drink, and I am tired. It's not even 2 o'clock yet, and I'm tired. This is a lazy Sunday for me. Alright, that being said, thanks for coming through. Kuma, say goodbye, my dude.
By all means.
And until the next chapter of One Piece, or until the next video of mine you watch, whatever it is you're here for, nothing but love, nothing but respect. Thank you guys and girls for coming through. Couldn't do it without you. And yeah, have a damn good day. Goodbye.